The ship runs 844 feet long, displaces around 41,000 tons, and carries between 1,100 permanent ship's company and another 1,800 embarked Marines of the Marine Expeditionary Unit. On paper, the plumbing was designed for that load. On paper, the evaporators distill enough fresh water to keep everyone clean, fed, and hydrated. On paper, the head facilities, Navy slang for bathrooms, function exactly as the Naval Sea Systems Command drawings say they should. Paper does not survive 270 days at sea. This is a catalog of what actually fails. Not the dramatic failures that make the news, but the small, recurring, deeply human failures that define the smell, the sleep schedule, and the morale of a deployed crew. 6 of them, in the order they typically appear on a long deployment. Drawn from Navy maintenance manuals, NAVSEA standards, published memoirs, and the kind of conversations sailors have on the smoke deck when nobody is taking notes. Start with the obvious one, the drain stack. A Wasp-class ship has dozens of head compartments stacked vertically through the superstructure and below the waterline. Each head typically contains 4 to 8 shower stalls, several sinks, and a row of toilets, all draining into a common vertical pipe called the soil stack or, for gray water, the drain stack. These stacks run the height of the ship. Gravity does most of the work. Pumps handle the rest. Hair is the enemy. Specifically, the combination of hair, soap scum, shaving cream, and the fine grit of jet fuel and engineering oil that clings to every uniform after a flight quarters cycle. Within the first 6 weeks of deployment, the lower elbows of the drain stack begin to glaze with a brown biofilm. By month 3, that biofilm has thickened into something closer to grout. Hull technicians, the rate responsible for shipboard plumbing, call it the cast. When the cast hits about 40% of pipe diameter, the symptoms start. Water pools 2 inches deep in the stalls. The drains gurgle backward when someone flushes a toilet on the deck above. The smell follows. Not a sewer smell exactly. The soil stacks are separate, but a sour, organic, gym bag odor that no amount of disinfectant erases. The fix is brutal. Hull techs in coveralls and respirators break down the access flanges, snake a 40-foot auger through the elbows, and pull out matted ropes of hair and grease the thickness of a fire hose. On a single Wasp-class deployment, the HT shop will clear the same stack 3 or 4 times. Each clearing takes the head offline for 6 to 8 hours. 200 sailors and Marines lose access to their nearest showers and reroute, in flip-flops and a towel, to another berthing 2 decks away. Sailors call this the migration. It happens before reveille and after Liberty Call, and at every shift change. A column of half-dressed personnel padding through passageways, shower kits in hand, looking for water that works. There is a hierarchy inside the migration that newcomers learn fast. Senior enlisted know which heads are reliable and which are not, and they share that information selectively. A first-class petty officer who has been on the ship for 2 cruises can walk you to a working shower 3 decks below your berthing in under 4 minutes. A boot seaman, 2 weeks aboard, will wander for 20, get turned around in the engineering passageways, and end up showering in the same broken stall he just left. The map is not posted anywhere. The map lives in people's heads, and it changes weekly as new failures cascade through the system. The second failure is more technical and more frustrating. Pressure regulators. Every shower on the ship is fed through a manifold that drops the high-pressure fire main, the same saltwater pressure used for fire suppression and damage control, down to a usable shower flow. The regulator is a brass diaphragm valve about the size of a fist. It is rated for years of service. It does not get years of service on a deployment because it is cycled, on average, more than 1,000 times a day per head. When a regulator fails, it fails one of two ways: open or shut. Shut is merciful. The shower simply doesn't run. The sailor swears, dresses, and walks 2 decks. Open is worse. Open means the regulator passes full fire main pressure straight through the showerhead. Fire main pressure on an amphib runs around 125 pounds per square inch. A showerhead is designed for roughly 40. The result is a needle blast that strips skin, blows the curtain off its track, and floods the deck plates in seconds. There is a story, widely repeated in surface fleet wardrooms, of a junior marine who hit a push-button shower at 0500 and was thrown backward into the bulkhead hard enough to crack a vertebra. The ship's medical officer kept him on light duty for the rest of the float. The regulator was replaced inside an hour. The story stayed. Hull techs carry spare regulators in a 5-gallon bucket. They install them at the rate of 2 or 3 per week, per head, by month 6. The supply of brass diaphragms aboard is finite. When the bucket runs out, and on every long deployment the bucket runs out, the affected showers are secured. Yellow caution tape across the curtain rod. A handwritten sign. Out of service. See HT shop. The third failure is the one that breaks people quietly. Cold water crossover. A Wasp-class ship heats its potable water through a system of heat exchangers fed by the auxiliary steam plant. Hot water arrives at the showerhead via a dedicated insulated line. Cold water comes in on a separate line. The two meet at a mixing valve inside the wall behind each stall. When the mixing valve seal degrades, and the seals are rubber compounds rated for fresh water at moderate temperatures, not the constant thermal cycling of a deployment, cold water bleeds backward into the hot line. The entire hot manifold for that head loses pressure differential. Within minutes, every shower in the compartment is delivering tepid water at best and ice-cold water at worst. Consider what that means. The ship is operating in the Arabian Gulf or off the coast of Norway. Interior berthing spaces are kept at 68 degrees Fahrenheit by the HVAC system. A sailor coming off a 6-hour watch in main engineering, where ambient temperatures run 95 to 110 degrees, has been counting on a hot shower for the entire second half of his watch. He arrives in the head, strips, hits the button, and gets a faceful of 55-degree water. He takes the shower anyway. There isn't time to find another one before muster. The crossover problem compounds because it is invisible from the outside. The HT shop cannot detect it from the manifold gauges. They learn about it from complaints, which take days to filter up through the chain of command, because complaining about water temperature feels small next to everything else on a deployment. By the time someone with authority calls the work order in, the seal has been failing for 2 weeks, and the heat exchanger downstream is showing scale buildup that will take a full pier-side availability to clean. Sailors adapt. They learn which heads run hot at which hours. They share intelligence the way infantry share information about a good ration. Berthing 03-148-2-L has hot water from 0500 to 0700. Berthing 02-90-4-L holds heat until about 0900, then drops. The forward officer's head is reliable, but you have to be wearing khakis to get past the watch. The obvious question: why doesn't the ship just fix the system permanently? The system is fixed permanently every 4 years during a depot-level maintenance availability in a shipyard, where the entire potable water plant is opened, descaled, reflanged, and recertified. Between those availabilities, the ship's force does the best it can with the parts on board and the time available between flight operations and amphibious exercises. The repairs are triage, not restoration. Everyone knows this. Nobody likes it. The fourth failure lives behind the walls. Mold. The interior bulkheads of a shower compartment on a Wasp-class ship are lined with fiberglass reinforced plastic panels, FRP for short, bonded to the steel structure with marine adhesive. The panels are watertight on their face. They are not watertight at their seams, where a thin bead of silicone caulk is the only barrier between the shower and the insulation behind the panel. Caulk fails. It always fails.
UV light isn't the issue down here, but constant thermal cycling, abrasion from cleaning gear, and the simple impact of bodies and dropped soap bottles all break the silicon bond within months. Once the seal goes, moisture wicks behind the panel. It settles in the fiberglass batting. It does not dry. The temperature back there hovers in the 70s year-round. That is, by definition, a mold incubator. Sailors smell it before they see it. A sweet, earthy odor that doesn't respond to bleach because the bleach can't reach the source. By month 4 of a deployment, certain heads develop a permanent funk that follows people back to their racks. By month 6, removing a panel for any reason, even just to repair a pipe behind it, reveals colonies of black, green, and pink growth, covering the back of the FRP and the insulation behind it. Stachybotrys is the worst of them. Stachybotrys is what civilian inspectors call black mold. The Navy's Bureau of Medicine and Surgery has published guidance on shipboard mold remediation. The guidance is clear. Identify, contain, remove, replace. The guidance assumes you have time, materials, and a port. None of those are guaranteed underway. So the ship's force does what it can. They recork the visible seams. They wipe the FRP down with a quaternary ammonium cleaner. They run dehumidifiers in the worst compartments when the electrical load allows. It's a holding action. The real fix waits for the next maintenance period.
A retired hull tech, interviewed in a 2019 USNI oral history, described pulling a single FRP panel during a Mediterranean port call and finding behind it a fan-shaped colony of growth roughly 4 feet across. He cut the panel out, sealed it in 2 contractor bags, and walked it down to the incinerator himself. He said the smell came up through his coveralls for the rest of the day. He said he stopped thinking about what he was breathing in for the rest of the deployment because thinking about it would have made the deployment impossible. The medical side of this is harder to track than the mechanical side. Sick call on a long deployment fills, by month 5, with sailors complaining of persistent coughs, sinus infections that won't clear, skin rashes along the forearms and the back of the neck. The ship's corpsmen treat the symptoms, antihistamines, antibiotics, topical steroids, and rarely connect the case files into a pattern, because connecting them would require an industrial hygiene survey that nobody has time to run. The records exist. They sit in individual medical jackets scattered across the ship's population, and they do not aggregate into a finding until someone, years later, reads a memoir or files a VA claim, and a pattern emerges in retrospect. That is the 5th failure, in a way. Not the mold itself, but the decision to stop noticing it. Crews develop a kind of sensory amnesia that lets them function. Whether that amnesia is a feature of the system or a flaw is a question the Navy has never quite answered. It's a flaw. The system works exactly as designed: minimal water, maximal density, deferred maintenance, and the cost of that design is paid in the lungs and skin and patience of the people inside it. The 5th physical failure is almost comically small. Shower curtain clips. Each stall on the ship has a curtain, usually a heavy vinyl panel in a pale industrial blue, suspended from a curved track by 10 to 12 metal hooks called shower curtain clips. The clips are stamped aluminum, about the diameter of a quarter, and they cost the Navy supply system roughly 40 cents apiece. They break constantly. A clip fails when the curtain catches on something, a wet sailor, a passing arm, the spray of water itself, and the metal fatigue point at the top of the hook gives way. The clip pops off. The curtain sags. The sailor in the next stall gets a faceful of his neighbor's runoff. Water sheets across the deck plates into the passageway, where it pools, where someone slips, where someone fills out an incident report. Replacement clips are ordered through the standard supply chain. They arrive in cardboard boxes of 200. On a 9-month deployment, a Wasp-class LHD will go through roughly 6,000 of them, sometimes more. The supply officer reorders them at every port call. Sometimes the order is filled.
Sometimes it is not, and the ship's force gets creative, fashioning replacement clips from safety wire, zip ties, or paracord. There is no glamour in this. There is no medal for the petty officer who rigs a paracord shower clip at 0200 because the curtain has been dragging on the deck for 3 watches. But the work gets done. The curtain hangs. The next sailor takes his rinse without getting splashed. The ship moves on. The curtains themselves are a related casualty. The vinyl panels are rated for 2 years of service. They do not get 2 years on a deployed ship. By month 7, the lower hems have grown black with mildew, the upper grommets have torn out, and the curtains hang at an angle that no longer covers the stall opening. Sailors stop noticing. They shower behind half a curtain or no curtain at all because the alternative is waiting. And waiting means missing chow, or missing muster, or missing the only 20 minutes of free time they will get that day. Modesty is the first thing a long deployment takes. The body becomes a piece of equipment that needs to be rinsed, and the rinsing happens wherever the water happens to work. The 6th failure is the one nobody likes to talk about. Rationing. Every Wasp-class LHD carries 2 reverse osmosis evaporators, large industrial units in the auxiliary machinery rooms that draw seawater, push it through high-pressure membranes, and produce potable water at a designed rate of roughly 100,000 gallons per day combined. That number is sufficient for the ship's needs when both units are running at full output. They are not always running at full output. Membranes foul, pumps cavitate, high-pressure seals fail. When one evaporator drops offline for maintenance, the other carries the full load. When both drop to reduced output, which happens on average twice per 9-month deployment, the commanding officer declares water hours. Water hours are exactly what they sound like. Showers are restricted to specific windows of the day, typically 2 hours in the morning and 2 in the evening. Laundry is suspended. The mess decks shift to paper plates and disposable utensils to conserve dishwashing water. The water fountains in the passageways are taped over. Sailors are told to drink from canteens filled during designated periods. It is the smallest version of survival mode the modern Navy practices. And it is humbling. A chief petty officer who deployed on a Wasp-class amphib in the late 2000s described the first day of water hours in a published interview. You realize very quickly how much of your dignity is wrapped up in being clean. By day 3, you stop caring. By day 5, you understand why old salts talk about saltwater showers like they're a religious experience. A saltwater shower, for the uninitiated, is exactly what it sounds like. The ship has a separate saltwater shower system, usually a single stall per major berthing, that draws directly from the fire main. When potable water is rationed, sailors rinse in salt water, soap up with a special saltwater-compatible soap that the supply system carries in limited quantity, and use a small ration of fresh water, typically 1 quart, drawn from a marked container for a final rinse. The result is a feeling sailors describe with a phrase you hear on every deployment: salty clean. The skin tightens, the hair stiffens, the film never quite comes off. You are cleaner than you were. You are not clean.
Water hours rarely last more than 72 hours. The HT shop and the auxiliaries division work around the clock to bring the evaporators back online. When the announcement comes over the 1MC, water hours are secured, normal water consumption is authorized, there is no cheering. There is, instead, a slow, collective exhale, and a line at every shower stall on the ship within 10 minutes. Civilians who tour a Wasp-class amphib during a Fleet Week port visit see the heads as institutional, cramped, but functional. They notice the small stalls. They notice the push-button valves. They do not notice the absence of soap dishes, because there are no soap dishes. Everything in a Navy head is designed to be hosed down, and shelves attract clutter. They do not notice the FRP seams or the brass regulators behind the access panels. They do not smell what month 6 smells like.
They assume, reasonably, that the United States Navy, with its 11 supercarriers and its nuclear submarines and its global reach, has solved the problem of getting a sailor clean. The Navy has not solved it. The Navy has reached a compromise with it. The compromise is called the Navy shower, and every sailor learns it in boot camp. Wet, soap, rinse. 2 minutes maximum. Most sailors do it in 90 seconds, some do it in 60. By the end of a 9-month deployment, the ritual is so automatic that returning veterans report taking 30-second showers in their own homes for weeks after they get back. Their spouses notice. Their water bills drop. Their skin, which had been peeling and dry for most of the deployment, slowly returns to normal. The reverse adjustment takes longer than people expect. There are accounts in veterans' memoirs of sailors standing in a civilian shower a month after homecoming, water running unrestricted over their heads, and feeling something close to guilt. Not because they were wasting water, though some of them did feel that, but because they were no longer part of the compartment that had taught them what water was worth. That compartment is still operating. Somewhere right now, in a port or in a transit lane or in the middle of the Pacific, a hull tech is on his knees in coveralls and a respirator, snaking a 40-foot auger through a clogged drain stack on Deck 3. A junior Marine is standing in line for a shower at 0430, towel over his shoulder, waiting for a stall to open. A regulator is failing slowly behind a bulkhead nobody has opened in 3 months. A clip is breaking. A seal is bleeding. A panel is hiding something. Back to that corporal at 0430. The trickle of cold seawater finally turns into a real flow. Not hot, not even warm, but moving. He hits the soap. He hits the rinse. He is out of the stall in 78 seconds, towel around his waist, padding back through the passageway to his rack. He has 174 days behind him and an unknown number ahead. The ship's evaporators are running at 68% output, which is below the threshold for water hours, but not by much. The HT shop has a work order list 9 pages long. The mold behind the panel in head 03-148-2-L is growing by approximately 1 square inch per day. None of this will be in the after-action report. None of this will make the homecoming photographs. The cameras at the pier will show clean uniforms, dry hair, smiling families. They will not show what it took to be clean enough to smile. That is the deployment. Not the headline, not the press release. The quiet, repeated, grinding work of keeping 3,000 human beings rinsed and functional inside a steel box that was never quite designed for the way they actually live in it. 2 minutes maximum. Wet, soap, rinse. The placard above the stall does not change. The sailors underneath it do.